Let's see. Mike Suffredini is next, the ISS Program Manager, and will talk to us a little bit about commercial resupply services from his perspective.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. It's good to see you guys here this afternoon. And just last night, or this morning early, I was sitting over in Florida hoping John would launch the shuttle so we'd get on with the rest of assembly. But anyway, we're going to try that again in July, and we're looking forward to it. Before I go on, I made a huge error. Elon reminded me in looking at his photograph of his actual hardware. I should have done the same with Space Station, but Frank's chart 25, if you look at it, that's not an artist's rendition of what ISS is going to look like. That is a photograph of the Space Station, and it is largely complete as we know it today. It is also manned as recently as late May with a 6-person crew, and so we're continuing on in that program. And of course, a very important part of that is the ability to resupply and to get utilization on board so we can utilize the vehicle that we built. And so I thought I'd spend a little time talking to you about that today. So next chart, please. Of course, we all know we are going to retire the shuttle. The plan is retired at the end of 2010. And what that left us with was a significant gap in our ability to get resources to orbit between the time it retires and at that time, the planned life of the International Space Station, which is our plan is to operate through the end of 2015 and then deorbit it in the first quarter of 2016. And what we ended up with through our analysis is we found out we needed about 60 metric tons of upmass. And when you look at the vehicles that we have today that are available to us or will be available to us soon, we have, of course, we all know the Russian Progress vehicle for cargo and the Soyuz vehicle for crew. We recently had the first flight of the automated transfer vehicle, which is the European contribution to PAPAC, what we call Common Systems Ops cost. And that's going to be 4 more vehicles, the first one plus 4. And that'll be each year starting in 10. So 10, 11, 12, 13 will have an ATV vehicle. In addition to that, we're about to fly our first H-2 transfer vehicle, which is the JAXA contribution, also as a payback for Common Systems Ops costs. That will be 1 per year through the life of the program, starting with their first flight, which is going to occur here in September. Now, all those vehicles together, flying through those times that I just told you about, we still have a 60 metric ton shortfall. In addition to that, and you've heard folks talk about today, we also have a need to get crew to orbit. Today, of course, the shuttle had done that for us prior to the accident. We kind of evolved to doing most of the crew transport needs with the Soyuz spacecraft, although we still, up into the next couple flights, we have 1 crew member that we do rotate on the shuttle. And then the future, of course, for now, shows us having to procure those seats until the crew exploration vehicle is available. And the first flight where we can take 6 crew to orbit and it stays on orbit as a rescue vehicle is currently the fall of 2015. We have procured Soyuz spacecraft through the fall of 2012 with the return in 2013, and so we do have a gap there that we haven't procured to date. Next chart, please. So this chart, you've seen it before. This kind of just shows you the different capabilities. A couple of points I would make on this chart. First is you'll note that no vehicle other than the Space Shuttle is able to return unpressurized cargo. And that was a significant change for us. That drove us to go to what we refer to as a build and burn philosophy. Prior to this time, we built a limited number of orbit replaceable units, or basically spare components. And when they failed, the intention was to return them home and repair them and fly them back up when we needed them. The external ORUs are all very, I would say all, they're mostly all very, very large components, very heavy. And there was no capability at the time or planned capability we knew of to be able to handle the external ORUs. And in fact, that's holding true today. Nobody is planning to do a return capability external ORUs. In addition to that, you'll see if we hadn't gone with the Commercial Resupply Services contract, that there wasn't even a capability to bring a significant amount of pressurized cargo home. The Soyuz does bring home a little bit per our contract. For each seat, we get about 17 kilograms in a very confined space, so we can bring home some samples, water samples, experiment samples, but it's fairly limited. And so we needed that capability as well. Now, the HTV does have, it was at the time, but before CRS, HTV was the only vehicle that also had an upmass capability for external ORU. So now we still have to get the spares to orbit. HTV was going to be the only capability to do that. And this is something we also got more capability with the CRS contract. So you can see just that chart alone will kind of makes you realize how big of an impact losing Shuttle did to us. Now you have to remember, much of the Shuttle capability, the whole program was built around assembly, and of course much of that capability that we utilize on Shuttle has been for assembly as well. So it's hard to compare apples to apples on this chart just from pure upmass standpoint. Next chart. So all of this drove us to go into a procurement of a capability to take care of the remaining 60 metric tons that we had to procure in order to operate the ISS through 2015. I won't go through all these charts, but we did do a lengthy process to involve commercial, the industry early on to understand what they could and couldn't do, what was reasonable to expect. We were into a fixed price contract. We wanted to understand the application of that capability. All that drove us to an RFP on April 14th. And you can see down here at the bottom, it showed you basically what we put in as the need that the RFP was trying to fulfill. You'll notice it has upmass, both internal and external. It has only pressurized return, because that was the only capability we thought we could get in a return capability, and then this disposal down mass, which is just a nice way of saying trash, Frank mentioned earlier. Next chart, please. This chart, we spent a lot of time trying to decide what we could do and when we should do it. This chart is showing, it says it here in the title, using 2008 historical scheduled date. So in late 2007, we were trying to decide when to do the procurement, and this chart just kind of shows you at this time, RPK was out of the picture. The COTS Phase 1 second re-award, if you will, hadn't taken place, so we knew what the SpaceX plan was going to be. We also knew from talking to our JAXA colleagues that they needed about a 36-month lead time to build an HTV. If we asked for one, they need about 36 months. And of course, we need additional time just to do the negotiations before the 36-month clock started. In addition to that, we found in talking to industry that it would probably take about 2 years to get any vehicle that we wanted. So if we ordered, we had to always order about 2 years in advance. And that's been true for the Progress vehicle as well. It's a pretty standard time. The human-rated spacecraft tend to take a little longer, and that's also borne out from our purchase of the Soyuz spacecraft. But in any event, 2011, early 2011 is when we decided was the deadline to have capability to orbit, and I'll talk a little bit about the challenges associated with any movement to the right of schedule here in a minute. But that drove us then to do the acquisition when we did. Next chart, please. This was going to be a new way of doing business, at least for us anyway. We're used to doing cost-plus contracts, controlling every aspect of the process, and we also are fairly hands-on, even in ELV land, in terms of what we watch and what data we get back, and we even give a go at launch time. And we were trying to change to a little more closer to the type of fixed price contract you'd expect. It's an end-to-end service type contract. In all these cases, we supply an ORU or a bag of supplies to the provider, and the provider gives it back to us when we get on space station. And so it's an end-to-end service. Now, to the extent we could let go of the launch vehicle we've got relatively hands-off in terms of the launch vehicle prep and what they have to do to ensure mission success. There's still work they have to do working with the range and FAA to ensure safety for the people on the ground, but once you get past that point, it's really up to these contractors to ensure that they're going to be successful and get to ISS. And then we had this sphere around ISS, about 2 by 2 by 4 kilometer sphere around ISS, And anything that the spacecraft does inside that sphere, including the burn to get to that sphere, then is a little more tightly controlled, more like you expect NASA would do. But it really was only from a safety aspect. Anything to do with mission success, we took off those kinds of requirements we normally apply, and we applied just the requirements having to do with safety in order to ensure that we would be safe. But the whole idea was to put the monkey on the back of the provider to get to ISS and try to take some of our work out of that process. So it's a contract for fixed price, as I said here, for the internal, external upmass and the cargo return and cargo disposal. And in the end, we ended up selecting 2 vendors inside this contract. We had the option to select 1, 2, even could do more than 2 if we chose. Of course, more than 2, you'd run into a problem of having enough business to entice a contractor to play. We felt like we needed at least 2 because in the cases of what were proposed to us, it was all new vehicles. And so we felt like we needed some redundancy there to hope that if 2 applied, we would, of course, hope both will be successful, but if they don't, we still have a chance that 1 might be enough to keep us going until we get other capability to orbit. Next chart, please. So this is the result of the task order after we awarded the contract in late December. In about the March timeframe, we sat down with both companies and did what we called our task orders, and this is basically how the flights worked out. We picked year and month and kind of laid them out, and then as we get closer in, within about 2 years, we'll do ATP, and in about 18 months, then we'll actually select the launch date and a 90-day period that they have to launch within, and we'll agree to that at this vehicle baseline review that has occurred in one case and is to occur here shortly, as Frank mentioned. Next chart, please. So this just kind of gives you a sense of the 2-year window and how the flights line up. The red X's are the actual launch dates, and then the bar there is the time from ATP to launch. And it just kind of gives you a feel for where everything lays out. Remember, I told you the beginning of 2011 is when we wanted to be able to have cargo to orbit, and the current plan for the COTS part of this process was not to carry cargo to ISS. So the first cargo on either of the 2 vehicles was going to be on the SpaceX vehicle in late 2010. So when we made the award, we were already kind of late relative to our needs. Next chart, please. So I won't get into too much detail on these next 2 charts in order to save time. But you can kind of see the milestones that are listed here. We're coupled very closely to the COTS effort. The COTS program really manages the relationship with Orbital and SpaceX. All of the integration work, all the requirements, all of that is supplied by and verified by the International Space Station program, and that ensures that when the COTS fly occurs, and if it is successful, then transitioning to the CRS flight should be relatively seamless. Next chart, please. And this is just the specifics for the orbital flight as well. You'll notice there's a little bit of a difference to orbital, and Frank mentioned it. They have a solid second stage early in their program, and after the first couple of flights, they go to a liquid stage, which provides more performance. And as the last 2 bullets say, really, this is a challenging business at best. It is a very difficult business. We all in this room, most of us in this room, have a lot of experience with this, and no matter how well we plan and how hard we work and how much money we put into it, there are always challenges to overcome. And even once you become operational, until you've flown a few times, you're still going to have challenges making schedule. And so we believe that even once we do the VBR, we need to be prepared for slips as much as 3 to 6 months and maybe more. Next chart, please. So this chart is an attempt to show you what the logistics are on board that we have to provide for on the International Space Station through the end of 2011. And I'll try to talk to you a little bit in large detail here. The green line is the crew supply, so that's water, food, clothing, all the things that the crew needs to survive. The orange line is the consumables, so those are filters, tanks, those big tanks you saw Frank show, those kinds of things are the consumables required to operate the systems for the crew. The dashed purple line is the utilization requirements, and you can see even today with the capability we have because of assembly, we're challenged early in 2010 to meet the needs of the utilization crowd. And then finally, the light gray is corrective maintenance, and so even as we plan today, we're relatively challenged to do the corrective maintenance. Now that's not a bad thing. This is all based on mean time between failure. Our mean time between failures on the majority of our components have been very friendly to us, and as you can expect early in the life of the space station, these systems are relatively young, and we would expect that we will continue to have positive performance from the hardware relative to failures. However, as the vehicle gets older, you wouldn't want to carry this kind of challenge because you can expect more failures as they get closer to their design life. Now, what we have done in the program to try to mitigate the risk of the potential for these vehicles to move to the right are two things. One is you see the dots that represent both the demo flights, the demo flights that actually berthed to the ISS, so Demo 3 for SpaceX and the single orbital demo. And then you see the first couple of flights for SpaceX there and the first CRS flight for orbital. None of that upmass is accommodated in that chart. So what that chart tells you is we could probably keep the ISS flying and utilize it the way we expect to utilize it through about the end of 2011. And at that point, if we don't have some upmass from one of these systems, we're going to be challenged to continue to utilize ISS in the long term. Now, I'll tell you a couple things. One is, of course, I told you that we haven't accommodated any upmass, so I haven't assumed any upmass from any of those vehicles. And second of all, even though the demos today are not intended to carry flight hardware to orbit, one of the things we're looking at is we want to make sure the demo is as realistic as possible. In order to do that, we believe we should manifest those vehicles as if they're flying as real vehicles, and it's all about how you pack it and how you're going to, once you get it to orbit, how you're going to unpack it and how you're going to fill it back up with trash. And so we believe that we have rationale to go ahead and manifest flight hardware on the orbit from the demonstration flights as well. So that's another mitigation. Any one of these flights makes it between now and the end of 2011. That's just more margin for us to continue on. So our job is to try to manage the ISS such that we can give as much to both orbital and SpaceX to move to the right as they naturally, as you might expect them to have to as they conquer problems. Part of that, of course, is working very closely with them not to let other slips occur. So you want to manage really hard to your milestones so you can deal with those problems that you're not expecting to have. And so that's part of what we've been working closely with both SpaceX and Orbital to talk about. And I'll just tell you up front right now, both companies have done just a great job of working with us and designing their systems and understanding our requirements. And we've been very impressed so far. We just know that the challenge is there no matter how good you are. Next chart, please. So this is really my summary chart. We selected 2 contracts to give us some mitigation to the possibility if one or the other didn't quite make it. We're working very closely with they call themselves C3PO, the office that manages the COTS program on behalf of ESMD, and in fact are doing all the integration work for the COTS program to ensure that the COTS vehicles then can seamlessly become CRS vehicles when that occurs. We have great insight into their milestones. We're working closely with them when we see challenges coming along. And while the contractors do have quite a bit of work ahead of them, we think they're doing a great job, but we would expect schedule slips as you normally would. And we're working hard to help mitigate those, as we mentioned earlier. And that concludes my presentation, Mr. Chairman, and I'm ready to take any questions you might have.
Okay, terrific. Thanks very much, Mike. Questions from anybody? Okay, Jeff.
Back on your chart 11, I assume these jagged lines are your demand. This is what you want to fly.
That's what we will fly.
That's what you will fly.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm at a loss as to how things like in 2010, for example, how does some of these items like ISS utilization get negative?
They get negative when you know you're not supplying at the level. 0 represents what we believe we need to be above to meet the needs of the
So this
different
is basically
suppliers.
the margin you have.
Right.
Okay,
So-
gotcha.
So in this case, we're trying to meet the needs of utilization folks. I'll tell you, that dip is for, I'll say for utilization resupply. So all of the racks and capability that we need to put on orbit to use in the future, that all does make it to orbit.
See, I've got please go ahead, Bo.
Oh, thank you. Michael, when we listened today to Mr. Perminov, the Russian Space Agency head, he didn't seem to be concerned about the fact that NASA budget for support to International Space Station today is not planned beyond 2016. I haven't heard any concern from either of the COTS contractors either, your suppliers. And I'm thinking, is it just everybody assumes that America and NASA will come to its senses and figure out how to fund it past 2016, or are these guys in it for short run? What am I missing?
Good. I was about to say we should ask him. So there's Frank up there. He's going, yes. Well, I'll tell you what my conversations are, and then I would encourage you to.
Well,
let
you work
Frank
with all
and
of these
Elon-
guys,
let
you know.
Frank and Elon come up here and talk, and I think Anatoly's gone. But all of the partners have expressed to us that they have made a major investment in ISS. And in fact, in the Russians' case, they want to build yet another module, and they kind of don't want to do that if it's only going to be on orbit for 2 or 3 years. That's a major investment for 2 or 3 years. So our discussions with the partners has been they would like to see us go beyond 2015. Now, as far as SpaceX and Orbital go, I got to believe, based on the way the contract's written, that they would like to see the opportunity to defray more of the cost that they made in their first investment to get to where they are and see us fly more so they could do more resupply. But Frank and Elon would have to comment, if you'd like. Was I close? Did I get it right? There you go. So,
As I said, maintaining the human presence in space is extremely important for this country, particularly if we're going to go beyond low Earth orbit. We want to keep the programs going, keep this one going. We've got a lot invested in ISS. Our partners have a lot invested in it. Going beyond 2016, I think, is a very important decision that needs to be made very soon.
Thank you.
now, we're going to have lots of opportunities to talk about other things, and if you ever ask me what I think about that, it'll actually be even slightly different than how I answered for those guys.
I had a question I wanted to ask. From October 2010 for 5 years or thereabouts, the current plan would be dependent on the Russians to put astronauts on the station. If I go backwards in time from October of 2010, there's one more mission that carries a crew with the shuttle, is that right? One remaining?
2 more.
Oh, there are 2 remaining.
2JA, which is on the pad, and 17A will rotate 1 U.S.
One
OS
beyond
crew
that.
member, and then we bring home that crew member on ULF-3.
And if I take literally today, go backwards in time, when was the previous flight of the shuttle that carried a crew?
The previous flight.
There was a previous flight. Okay, thank you very much.
We did the lion's share crew rotation on the shuttle till the accident, and then the Soyuz had to do all of it until we started flying again. After we started flying again, we started putting a single crew, doing 2 on the Soyuz and a single crew on the shuttle, and we've done that semi-consistently for a little while.
Got it. Very good. Are there any other questions? Hearing no other questions, well, thank you very much.